Good morning and welcome to Advancing with Watercolor. My name's Gary Tucker and today I'm going to be talking a bit about color and starting off by showing you an exercise that you can do with your pigments to get to know them better. And later on in another video I'm going to demonstrate how you would take this knowledge that we get from the exercise and apply it to a painting. So let's go over to my desk here. Hi everyone, and I'm going to demonstrate a drill for you today that will help you to become familiar with the colors that you have on your palette. And this is important because almost all of us have a different array of colors that we have on our palette. Some we use very often, some we use more infrequently. But this little drill involves using 2, 3, 4 of your colors. Today I'm using CAD red light, which you see me applying now, and later on I'll use alizarin crimson. But in this first sequence of squares, I'm going to create 5 iterations going from light to dark. And I'll do the same below with the alizarin crimson. I'm leaving some gaps in the squares, which will make a little more sense later. But I'm just trying to get an application going from a very light, watered down hue to a little stronger, to a little thicker color, and result in the last square is basically the pigment right out of the tube, so that you get an idea in doing this exercise, the full range of your colors. And you'll notice that alizarin crimson has a little more range than the CAD red light. You can even notice this in looking at the palette. This is dried and I'm starting to go back over the first row of colors, and now I'm using a color called cobalt turquoise, and this is a good match for the CAD red light. They both have a rather limited value range and a little opacity, and they work well together. And what I'm doing now is trying to match the hue. I'm trying to, in essence, bring the same darkness of this hue, the cobalt turquoise, and layer it on top of the dried CAD red light. The result is I can see some of the gray possibilities in making grays. I can see how the colors work together. I can test their opacity and get a reference through doing this exercise on how it might be useful in a painting. And I'm going to do the same sort of application below. Instead of using the cobalt turquoise, I use another green called viridian on occasion. And I'm layering the viridian in the same manner. Again, working from a very light, watered down hue to a darker, thicker hue that is in essence much less water as I'm coming to these final squares. In fact, the last square that I'm doing is the pigment right out of the tube. And this is just 4 of the colors that I use. I would recommend you to use all your colors in various combinations for this sort of exercise. The next exercise that I want to show you using the same combinations, the CAD red light and the cobalt turquoise, is to show you how they mix on the palette and how they mix on the paper. The first exercise is going to demonstrate how they mix on the paper, and what I'm doing is placing a strong version of CAD red light and the cobalt turquoise, and then I'm just going to take a brush full of water and blend them on the paper. Not too thoroughly, so that you can see how they separate and how they create an interesting gray. And this is very useful in working with watercolor, blending color on the page. So I chose to use a very strong hues, but you could do the same thing with a little bit of a watered down hue. And then I'm going to mix these colors on my palette and try to demonstrate a version of a cool gray and a version of a warm gray side by side, so you'll be able to notice the temperature variation, the warmness of one gray and the coolness of another gray right next to each other. They're both about the same value. They've both been mixed on the palette using the two colors that I used in the previous exercise. So we get a lot of useful feedback from doing this exercise, which is why I can recommend it for coming to know how your colors work together. I'm going to be doing the same exercise just below this using a Viridian, which is a very strong, powerful green, and the alizarin crimson. And I'm going to mix these two on the paper, just taking a brush full of water and blending them together, and then letting them separate, letting them merge. And you can see some of the results that watercolor offers us in blending colors on the page. This sort of transition, this gradation from one color to the next is quite beautiful and something that we can capitalize on when we're painting with watercolors. I want to do the same exercise as above, but use this different colors, the Viridian and the alizarin, to present two grays, a cool gray and a warm gray. And I'm also trying to make the values about the same. That means the lightness or the darkness, tonal value. And there we have it. These color exercises, as I said, could be very useful throughout your whole palette, finding different color combinations, overlaying colors in a dry fashion as we did before. And I'd like you to stay tuned, because in my next video I'm going to demonstrate this painting. And basically this painting was built up using the same two techniques and the same four colors that I used in this exercise. So I hope you'll come back and enjoy me for the next video. Check out the description below, as you can see some links to the materials list that I use. You can see links to videos that also deal with color and using color in watercolor, as well as my website. We'll see you next time.